First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming today to this very significant event that the governor's staff has offered to us. And I have to say, Governor, that it is a very big honor for me and my organization to be able to sit with you and talk about the current state of business in New Jersey. And looking forward to having a chat. Let me just say one thing about the governor that I have to really mention. From the very first time I met him, which was well before he announced his candidacy to run for governor, we had conversations in my office, and we discussed business, and we had a very strong agreement to agree to disagree. And we have honored that throughout the term and a half of the governor, and I hope that I've honored that. I know the governor's honored that with me, and it's always been respectful with our dialogue, and that's important to me, and I hope it's important to the governor. So even though we've had disagreements over the years, we share one common goal, a very strong goal, and that is to allow our state to achieve its enormous potential, both economically and culturally. And we're on the path to doing that. We have great momentum. We need to leverage things that are going on right now in the recent last few months that are very positive for the business community. And all those are big image builders for the state of New Jersey. And I do have to say that one of the biggest pluses building our image has been the way the governor ran his term as chairman of the National Governors Association. He did it in a very dynamic leadership way that really reflected well on our state. And Governor, I thank you for that. I watched the handoff to Spencer Cox, and that was interesting, and I know they all appreciated what you did in your 2-year term. So we have a state here that is has probably the best combination of assets, location, and demographics of any state in the country. And we have moved along in the continuum of business rankings. We just hit a home run by going from 43rd to 19th, and we need to leverage that. But we still have a ways to go, and I think what we're going to talk about today, hopefully, with the governor, is to find a way to take what we have going for us and the momentum we have and taking us even higher in the rankings, which will help companies that are here want to stay here and grow here and attract more business to the state of New Jersey, both domestically and internationally. So with that little preamble, Governor, can I just start with asking you a few questions?
Absolutely.
Great. All right. So the first question is, with all the positive momentum we have, and let me just highlight some of the things that we have had in our favor in the last couple of months. 7 credit rating upgrades, a record budget surplus, the 3rd straight year of full pension payment, the sunsetting of the 2.5% corporate business tax surcharge, a growing economy, a strong housing market, and quite a bit of recent pro-business legislation. Can you tell me your feeling on what all that is attributed to?
Tom, thank you. What happened to Tech? Is he still here? Tech, thank you so much to you and your colleagues at NJIT, trustees, and senior staff. This is an absolute American gem, never mind a New Jersey gem. Let's hear it one more time for our hosts. So thank you. Tom, great to be with you. And I think the list of what you and I agree on and have found common ground has gone up in 6 years and not gone down. And I think that's a good thing. And I think you'd agree with that as well. To all the distinguished folks here, elected officials, I want to single out one, Ellen Park, who is here, and you'll know why in a few moments. Representatives from the Japanese diplomatic mission, Korean diplomatic mission, other electeds, industry leaders, colleagues, distinguished guests. It's an honor to be here. So I had to give a little bit of, if I go off script for a sec, I had to give a speech in Fort Lauderdale yesterday. So it was a day trip. Go down, do the speech, come back. I flew down without any incident on United Airlines, the Wings of Man. John Harmon, I see you in the back. Nice to see you, buddy. Wanted to get that off my chest. And I had one heck of a time getting back here last night. Jim Fakult is here. JCP&L had a bunch of outages, but you're back on your feet, thank God. But you saw the nasty weather that we had last night. So instead of getting in at 4:15, I got in at like 10:15 or something like that. But I got back. But I had a lot of time to think. And I was thinking about our discussion today, but I was also thinking about what I should wear today. And I'm coming off of a Barbenheimer weekend. And how many of you here are Barbenheimers? You saw? Okay. So I just want you to know that for the many hours I was in the airport lounge or on the plane, on the tarmac, I thought to myself, what would J. Robert Oppenheimer wear on a warm summer day at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton in the 40s, 50s, or 60s? And Tom, I settled on a seersucker suit. I thought that was
good to me. I had one of those once too.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then I thought if Margot Robbie were dressing me, what would she? So I want to make sure you all notice I've got a little bit of flair of pink here in honor of Barbie. You all paying attention out there? Good. Just making sure. When you have a discussion like this and you've had the progress that we've had, you run the risk of tearing your rotator cuff by patting yourself on the back. And I don't want to run that risk, and I don't want to give anybody any impression that we're anywhere near the end zone. Everything that Tom said is true. The needles are all pointing in the right direction. There's no question about it. But we're digging out of a big hole. We remain on a journey. We have exogenous challenges that I'm not sure any of us would have expected a couple of years ago. 3 years ago, a pandemic, inflation at a significant level, a war in Europe, to pick three realities. So those are very significant curveballs that exist out there. Beyond, in many respects, beyond our control. We don't control the Federal Reserve. We don't control the Pentagon. And certainly we don't control pandemics and viruses. We do everything we can to react as best we can to them. But those are three things you just have to accept. You have to play the hand that you're dealt. And I always think that that's a good analogy. It isn't really a Democratic hand or a Republican hand, but play the damn hand. And in New Jersey's case, the hand begins with talent, tech, NGIT, a great example of that, and location. And historically, whether you've been a Democratic governor or a Republican governor, if you played that hand and you invested in that hand and you accepted that's who you are as a state, then typically good things happened. Your credit ratings are good. You have a good fiscal house. You're able to address inequities, grow the economy. When we haven't played that hand, again, this is beyond partisan politics, we've gone off the rails. And so we succeeded 11 straight consecutive downgrades by the rating agencies. We had an economy, we accepted that the economy was static. So for me to do well means, Bill, you had to do less well. And that's no way to think about it. We want to grow the pie. And then we also want to make sure everybody gets a piece of the pie so that we address the inequities. Some of them yawning, some of them sadly first in the nation inequities that we inherited. So I'm proud of what we're doing. We're growing so it's a three-legged stool. Grow the economy, address inequities, be responsible once again. Be the state that New Jersey used to be the model state. I didn't grow up here, so I know this. Everybody would point to a AAA bond-rated New Jersey, and it didn't matter if it was Tom Kean as governor or Jim Florio as governor or Brendan Byrne or Christy Todd Whitman. This was a state that was up on a pedestal. Its credit rating, its economy, the way it did things, its judiciary, so many aspects. Now the good news is we've retained a lot of that. In some cases we lost our way, but we've retained a lot of that. I would just say one other thing, Tom, because I know you've got a bunch of questions. I think the decisions you make are really important, but the decisions that you don't make are as important. Meaning, I think any of us, Angela, me, anybody here, look in the mirror and be honest with yourself. Who are you? Who are you not? What are you capable of? What are you not capable of? I will die dreaming and trying to make trucks and cars again in New Jersey. But if I spend time and we spend time on that endeavor, there's an opportunity cost associated with that. That's time that I'm not spending with Eric Brophy or the EDA or Choose New Jersey to pursue a pharmaceutical, life science. In many cases, multinationals. We are the most diverse and we are the most international American state. We're a natural location for a multinational innovation economy, tech, telecom, increasingly green economy. So I think that's good advice. It's not my advice. I got this advice a long time ago. What you do is really important. What you don't do may be just as important. I'll leave it at that for a moment.
Great, thank you. So, CNBC poll. Great move from 43rd to 19th. I think I would be surprised if you weren't surprised by that. I was surprised by that, and a lot of people were surprised by that. But the reality is, although we're 19th, we should be top 10. And we have an opportunity to get there. And there were some factors that led to that 19th ranking that were not so positive, one of which was the lack of being business friendly. Governor, if we attack that one category of business friendly, how do you think we should attack that? Because moving that category up higher on the scale could, quite frankly, get us to top 10.
Yeah, I'm more of a glass half full than half empty, Tom. When you go from 40-something to 19, the good news is you jump more than any other American state, literally. The bad news is, I don't know about you, I don't wake up in the morning and say, yes, we're 19th. That's not in my lexicon. CNBC, 2 weeks later, put a separate poll out. Again, we have nothing to do with this. I'd like to tell you that we were slipping 20s under the table to get these results. But they ranked all American states, and I think I'm quoting CNBC, best states in America in which to live and work. That was the headline, and we're number 3. And the states ahead of us are great American states, Maine and Vermont, but we don't compete with Maine and Vermont. We compete with sort of 2 lists of states, and I think you'd agree with this. Yes. One are the states that are like us. And on that list would be Massachusetts, Connecticut, California, increasingly North Carolina, New York City, Pennsylvania to some degree. That's one list. And then there's another list which is very much not like us, but you'd be lying if you didn't say that you didn't have your eye on Florida, Texas, South Carolina to some extent. Typically low tax states, right to work states, so very different approaches on unions, warmer weather, I'm not sure I can do much about that, but a very different, those tend to be the states. My list is too short, so Nashville and Austin are really hot communities inside of states that don't, those communities look like us, but the states don't. Upper Illinois is a competitor to us, particularly greater Chicago. Colorado, to some degree, a state that looks and feels like us. So that's sort of just to give you a sense of who we look at that we think realistically is on our, and again, those are 2 different types. You with me? These are 2 very different groups of states. And so those are the ones that we're we look at everybody and we look at international stuff. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but we look around the world as well. So Chuck Richmond, anybody know Chuck Richmond? Chuck is a giant in this state, and Tom, you know him well. He's our permitting czar, and we put Chuck into that position, Eric, how long ago? Year and a half, 2? About a year and a half. He's making enormous progress on that front. Permitting typically comes up at or near the top of the list. When people sort of complain in New Jersey, they complain kind of about two things. I think you'd agree with this. Number one, cost of living, which is why we, with the budget I just signed recently, we have now put 20 tax cuts, including some behemoths, the anchor property relief, tax relief program being the biggest. We've signed 20 tax reliefs for middle class and seniors, working families. And then the second one is red tape. And I think you'd agree those are probably the two, the double-headed, when you say quick, what do you don't like about the state? Some of this is on the cost of living side. We're laser focused on it, but it's also the easy, if you're at a cocktail party and someone says, what do you don't like about New Jersey? The easiest thing to say is, God, it's really expensive to live here. People have been saying that at cocktail parties, by the way, for 50 to 100 years about New Jersey. This didn't arise, and I think this administration has done more against that than any other. The permitting is more, I think, ironically more complicated, Tom, because we are the most densely populated American state. We sit in the Northeast corridor. 20% of the American economy either is here or comes through here. You can't get a so-called gentleman's C on the environment. You got to get that right, and that's the one caveat. It's not just Chuck's work. It's whatever work that we do collectively to develop the state. We have to do it very carefully, and I'm not shy about saying that. And in as much as that leads to a lot of headaches, and you hear that, oh my God, I can't believe I got to go through, or whatever DP process there might be. The one thing about us is we're on top of each other. You got to get this right. So we've made progress. Again, we're not patting ourselves on the back, and we'll continue to make progress. We're committed to that.
So on that issue, first of all, let me say that the combination of Chuck Richmond and Eric Brophy has been a godsend to us in the business community with helping us get through and passing legislation to make especially local issues, permitting issues better, and inspection issues. So we're looking forward to much more of that, and I know Eric and Chuck are committed to do that. So that's something that we can all expect to, I think, hopefully.
Is Chuck here, by the way?
No, I don't think he is.
I see Eric over there. Did Eric slip you a 20 to say something nice about him?
So the issue of attacking business friendly, I have a few low-hanging fruit issues that I'd like to lay on the table that I think would really take us a long way to making progress on eliminating that negative term. First of all, come as no surprise, the business community would like to see some relief from the unemployment trust fund replenishment. And we've been talking to your office and the legislature for a long time about that. We probably won't stop talking about that until we do get some relief. So that's one issue. Secondly, the business community, especially medium and small businesses, are still suffering from a working capital shortage. The banks are cutting back on lending. There's no federal programs. There are very few state programs. So we would like to see the EDA put out a very significant grant fund for the entire business community around the whole state to help with these companies that are struggling to survive. And I think right now, with the way the economy is, it would be a great time to put that forward. Thirdly, to your point about regulation, early on in your administration, the GEAR Commission was proposed, and that was, I believe, vetoed by you. But we would like to see the reintroduction of the GEAR Commission, which is the next iteration of the old Red Tape Commission, to eliminate regulations that are duplicative in the state and make it easier to do business. And fourth, and probably most importantly, I think it would be wonderful if you could set up an economic council in New Jersey made up of business organizations, middle market companies, your administration, the legislature, to have quarterly meetings to talk about what is going on economically. So we can't make progress and make decisions and move forward unless we talk about that as a group. We don't talk about that as a group, and I think that would be something that would be very, very helpful. And I go back to your handoff to Spencer Cox at the NGA and his comments about respectful discourse. Yeah. We don't have enough respectful discourse in New Jersey. And a meeting like that with those...
What do you mean?
Pardon me? I mean, you know what I mean. But anyway, that's that kind of a commission put together by you to have conversations on an ongoing basis would really help address all these issues. So those are 4 low-hanging fruit issues I'd like to hear your comments on.
Yeah, so all well said, all intriguing ideas, different reactions depending on the item, the specific item. As a background point, the top 3 states since March of 2020 putting money on the street for small businesses, including for African American, Hispanic, women, veteran-owned businesses in particular, where the EDA's got a lot of targeted programs. California, New York, New Jersey. We are the 11th largest state population-wise. We're the 4th smallest geographically, which is why we can say that we're the most densely populated. We're the 9th largest economy. So when we're doing something good that has us above 11 if it's population-based, or 9 if it's economy-based, if you're up in single digits, that's usually a good sign. So when you're 3rd in the nation on small business relief, you're 3rd in the nation on where to work and live, that's music to our ears, which is why 19 is not acceptable. The jump is huge, but we got to keep getting and punch at or above our weight.
And Governor, let me just interject. We really appreciate what you and the EDA have done, and you've done a lot. But the point is, there's still more that needs to be done.
Understood.
That's it.
So we've had a philosophical, I wouldn't say disagreement, but the other point related to the money is not just the money, but what impact are you getting from the money? Where is your best, where can you spend the dollar with the most return? Liz Moyo and Tahisha Way are here from our cabinet. Liz is our great treasurer and Tahisha is our great secretary of state. I say Tahisha just because tourism is a big part of our economy, and that's Tahisha. And among other things, voting, the modest challenge of getting voting done right. And Liz, of course, runs the budget and runs the treasury for us. Where do you get the highest bang for the buck? We have had a philosophical disagreement that going through the unemployment fund relief door gives you the highest return. But is that a discussion that we're willing to continue to engage in? Yes. Secondly, I think your working capital point is very well taken. And Eric and I will take this back. Tim Sullivan would be here, but he has actually an EDA board meeting this morning.
He's too busy talking about gummy bears in his briefcase that his kids put in there. If you follow him on Twitter.
Yes. Can we go back to my outfit? Yes, but that's also true. But that to me is a real issue. You've got banks, particularly regional banks, that have pulled back. You've got a huge overhang of commercial real estate. If you think we've got challenges, look at San Francisco, look at the cover of New York Magazine this week for New York City, Manhattan in particular. We have these issues to some degree, but thankfully we don't have them to that degree. Although we root for all the noise around congestion pricing and everything else, let me say unequivocally, we root for New York City to succeed. Because in so many respects, as it succeeds, we succeed. So we don't see things always the same way, but that doesn't mean we don't root for success. But I worry about the working capital point. So that's something I will commit to you. I want to sit down with Tim and his team to figure out if there's a way around it. I did veto the gear legislation because it to me reeked of a lot of cutting jobs. And I'm not sure that at the point that it came to my desk, that was the right thing to do. But having said that, I also committed, Chuck Richmond is a great example of this, to de-bureaucratize government at every turn. And I think we've been committed to that, putting a commission aside every single day. And one metric is that there, and I don't necessarily say this with a great amount of joy, because I want more jobs in New Jersey than fewer jobs, but there are meaningfully fewer workers in state government today than when I put my hand on the Bible in January of 18. So we have been, while we're not putting a commission up in lights, in Klieg lights, but it's something that we've been committed to day one, and especially over the past couple of years. On the last one, yeah, absolutely open-minded. But you all should know, if you don't know me or know some of the folks on our team, I'm a former Goldman Sachs executive. Tim Sullivan's a former Lehman Brothers executive. The chair of the EDA is a former Goldman Sachs colleague. George Helmy worked at American Express. My wife worked at Goldman Sachs and a few other places. We have an enormous amount of business folks in our lineup, including at very senior levels. And you're a good example of this. You and I go back and forth all the time. But am I open-minded to a more formal convening, maybe with a rotating group of folks, because you might get a different impulse? And we've done that informally. You and I have had, we haven't done it in a while. That was largely due to the pandemic, but we've had dinners at Drumthwacket. And am I open-minded to that? Absolutely.
Okay. I'm glad to hear all that. And this is being live streamed, so we can follow up on all that.
Particularly on my outfit.
I like your outfit. So in the 7 credit upgrades that we've had, which are all very positive for our image, at the very end of every single one of those credit reports, it talks about the need for the state to have a stable, organic, long-term funding source to maintain the revenue that we need to generate to fund our growing government. And I don't know of any better way or any other way, period, to have that stable, ongoing, organic growth of revenue than having our business economy grow. That's what ultimately would provide jobs, provide the revenue, both job-wise and corporately and business-wise, to fund the state government. So that's why we keep preaching for all this enhancement to business in New Jersey, because if we can accomplish that, we answer the credit ratings concerns about the future, and we can leverage what we're talking about today. So the comments I just made about the 4 low-hanging fruit things would help with that. I know some of the things you're doing, both domestically and internationally, will help draw more business to New Jersey. So just give me your feelings on if you think there's another way to get the stable, organic, ongoing revenue source that we need, that the credit agencies are talking about.
Yeah, it's a good point. And again, you and I see the same glass. You're tilting always a little bit empty. I tilt always a little bit full, so you'll forgive me for that. There are 3, and Liz has forgot more about this than any of us know. There are 3 drivers of our revenues. There's interest that we earn on our cash. There's other fees and whatnot that we collect. But the 3 big ones are the corporate business tax, sales tax, and personal income tax. And we mentioned that in April and May, Liz, our revenues softened, and they largely softened in the personal income tax arena. We continue to be highly levered toward Wall Street, whether that's bonuses, whether it's layoffs, whether it's capital gains, or the absence or presence of any of those. And that's a reality. We're less levered than we used to be. And that's not necessarily a negative about Wall Street, but I think it's a positive about the diversification of our economy. People continue to buy things. It has shown remarkable resiliency. And I think we expect that to stay about as it is. One of the credits that the rating agencies give us is that we're not heroic in our assumptions. In the past, in this state, the budget got balanced with way out over your skis revenue projections. Remember, it's a constitutional requirement to balance the budget. I don't have the luxury that you have in Washington, where you can run a deficit and increase your outstanding indebtedness every year. We can't do that. We have to balance the budget. So one of the pluses we get from the rating agencies is that we're very sober with our projections. Liz and I and our teams just met with the rating agencies last week, I believe. So the big ones are Fitch, Moody's, and S&P, and for whatever reason, we do them in the same day and in that same order every single year, and that comes up invariably. They look at things like one-time expenditures versus ongoing expenditures. So we were very, very obsessed on the federal monies that we got, that we did not, which New Jersey has done in the past, that we did not create programs with an ongoing state obligation when the federal money ran out. And by the way, we're very obsessed with one-time expenditures, state expenditures versus ongoing expenditures. It's why we allowed that corporate surcharge to sunset. It didn't bring me any joy, as you and I discussed way back when in 2018, to put it on to begin with, but we had no choice. We have now a surplus of $8.3 billion. We've defeased, we either have defeased or we have a $2 billion balance right now for further defeasement. Defeasement, by the way, if you don't know what that means, basically it's reducing your indebtedness in a smart way. You're taking down high-cost debt, frankly using lower-cost debt to do it, or just flat-out appropriations. When you combine our surplus with the current balance in that account, it's $10.3 billion. The budget that we inherited the year before we got here had a surplus of 400 and something million. So we had no choice then. But I can't look a business in the eye, in this case big businesses, and say honestly that we're still in crisis, that we need the revenue of that surcharge. Would I like the $1 billion that it brings us? You betcha. But a deal's a deal. That's not the right way to approach. I've said that to corporations that we'd lift that, and they in return said, if you lift it, we'll continue to create jobs and invest in New Jersey. We're keeping our side of the deal, and we expect them to keep their side of the deal. The corporate business tax, ironically, is the smallest of the three, but I don't disagree with your premise. The extent to which that can be steady and grow is a big, big focus of ours.
And it lifts all the others.
It lifts all the others. There's no question about it. I'll give you one example. And this happened before I got here. Barclays planted their flag in Whippany, New Jersey, and they have a campus out there. And they started, depending on who you ask, they started with 200 to 400 employees. And these are good paying jobs. They're some front office, but mostly middle and back office. It's why New Jersey's the fintech capital of America, because it's a natural spin out of the middle and back office pedigree that we have. JP Morgan has 13,000 people in Jersey City, to give you some sense of the scale. So I went out to Barclays a couple of weeks ago. They celebrated their 5th anniversary. They opened in July of my first year as governor. At the end of this year, they're going to have 4,800 employees. And to your point, Tom, most of them live in New Jersey. Not all of them. Some of them reverse commute out of New York. Some are in PA. But that's overwhelmingly, that's when I asked for I did a town hall, a crowd about this big, show of hands, 80 or 90% raised their hand when I asked if they were if they lived in New Jersey. I'll leave you with two. I know we're not done, but on this question, I want to leave folks with two bumper stickers that describe either me personally or what we're trying to do generally. Me personally, when people ask me, quick, where are you in the spectrum of politics or wherever, business friendly or not, I say that I'm a proud progressive and a cold-blooded capitalist. That is who I am. Number two, what's New Jersey's bumper sticker? Every state has a bumper sticker. Florida, no income tax, warm weather. We'll leave it at that. New Jersey, the #1 state in America to raise a family. That's who we are. And therefore, to be honest, that fat middle of our population, young folks, young couples, thinking about a family or actually raising a family, that is who we are. We are the king of the hill. We compete against very few places in America if you're in that fat middle. As long as your kids are in our public education system, if you're working and you rely on transit villages and high transit communities, that we are it. I mean, there are very few places that we could, Massachusetts probably would be on that list, very, very few spots. The challenge that we've had has been at either end. We've had a hard time keeping young people who go out of state for college or go out of state for a job. A lot of what we're doing is finally having a positive impact there, making higher education more affordable, more accessible, investing in the startup community. You know, we really, even in our worst days, largely held our own with big corporates staying in New Jersey. We really slipped on the startup side, which is why we've put a lot of money into venture capital, angel tax credits, a whole bunch, STEM education, places like tech, places like NJIT, deepening the relationship between higher ed, particularly translational research and commercial, whether it's here, Princeton, Rutgers, Rowan, Stevens would be probably the 5 that would come most to top of mind. So there's a lot. Adult use cannabis, we didn't do it to keep young people. We did it for equity and social justice, but apparently that's a popular thing with the young people. Just making sure you're paying attention, particularly back there. And then the seniors is the other challenge. 53% of your property tax bill on average is for public education.
Why are you looking at me when you say seniors?
When Johnny and Sally have graduated from public school, best in the nation, I don't know, you and I are still working, but most folks our age are retired. They own a home. They're on fixed income. That's why the anchor program, Senior Freeze, the Stay NJ, which we're going to phase in. We put some more chum on the water in this. Seniors will get this year an extra $250, either if you own a home or rent if you're under a certain income level. I could go on, but I'll leave it at that.
Well, first of all, I've written op-eds and commented in the press about your very staunch advocacy for the CBD surcharge to go away. I want to thank you for your support on that. I know you got a lot of pressure and a lot of blowback. We did too, but you got more than we did, and you stuck to your guns, and I really respect you for that. So that was, hopefully, it'll be the last time we see that. Maybe not, but it could come back, but hopefully you'll hold the same position on that. So one issue, Governor, that I think we need to touch on is, and you mentioned it in your opening remarks, we are the most diverse state in the country. Excuse me. And we have a growing, diverse business community who are coming together and expressing their needs for more support. John Harmon and I, at the African American Chamber, have been very, very aggressive in our DE&I approach in the state, and we are going to continue to accelerate that in 2 weeks with a big event that we're having. But the diverse minority business community needs help. They need more help with getting into state contracts. They need more help getting into the supplier chain. Yep. And do you have any thoughts on what you might do to enhance both of those situations?
Again, we've done a lot, but we're not nearly satisfied. To your very good question, and John's been a great leader on this, as has the Hispanic Chamber. There's something called a disparity study, which, for reasons I'm not sure I understand, has not been done in New Jersey. And we committed to doing that from day one, and it's frankly taken a lot longer than I would like, but it is a required bedrock study to have taken place to allow us constitutionally to put our, basically put wind in the sails of diverse supplier procurement. It's very frustrating. New York State, to their enormous credit, is a model. I think John, 31%, I believe, was the last number, right? 31% of all their procurement in New York State is diverse, and we're at a fraction of that. That's the bad news. The good news is that study, anybody know on my team, Eric, when that's going to, it's almost there. But I've been hearing that for a long time, but it's almost done. And when it is done, we will turbocharge the diverse procurement. And frankly, I'm very frustrated we haven't been able to do it yet. But apparently, constitutionally, if we don't have the study done, I'm not a lawyer, it will be challenged, our programs will be challenged, and we will be deemed to be unsuccessful. So away from that, we've done a lot, and we continue to do a lot through the Economic Development Authority. We have a diverse developers fund. We put a lot of money to work disproportionately for minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses. Our results since we've been in office in our pension funds in terms of diversifying the management of our pension monies has improved dramatically. But again, good progress on a lot of that, but frankly not where we need to be, nor should we be. And thanks to John and you and others, you'll stay on us and we'll stay on ourselves until we get that into a place. That's one where we want to be leading the nation unequivocally. So I'm not even, when we walk out of here in 2.5 years, we need to be number one across everything I just talked about. Again, I think, a diverse developers fund in the real estate, no one's got that other than New Jersey. So we are number one. But when you add up all of those programs together, we're not.
And we have a big challenge coming forward with the Supreme Court ruling on affirmative action, which is going to be something we all have to navigate through and deal with and make sure we keep our momentum going. Governor, let me just shift gears a little bit. We have a great opportunity to enhance revenue in New Jersey in the international markets. You've had trade missions to Germany, Israel, India, and Ireland. Right, Ireland. How could I forget Ireland? And I think through the Choose New Jersey group, you are thinking of expanding that, and I believe you might have some information on that.
A big reveal here. We had one that was also not official to France, which was a 48-hour shot where we had some good meetings. But yeah, so I've been wanting to announce what I'm about to announce for a long time, and the pandemic derailed it. We had hoped to do this in 2020 or 2021, and Ellen knows where I'm going here. So we will make a official trade mission this October to Asia, October 13 to 22. At a minimum, it will include both Japan and Korea, and we're assessing whether or not we want to broaden it beyond that. But those will be the anchor destinations. I think in that order, literally. And if you haven't been to Asia, we used to live in Hong Kong. You don't just sort of flip a switch and go to Asia. So it's a highly complex, but we think will ultimately be a very rewarding trip at many levels. And the other missions that we've taken, we hold ourselves to very high standards. If you've been on one of these trips with us, you'll know that we don't sit in our hands a lot. Job creation in New Jersey, investment in New Jersey are the top two priorities. And I would broaden that also to acknowledge the deep cultural, familial, institutional, personal relations that we are proud to have in our New Jersey community with both of those nations. Ellen knows this, but we have among the largest Korean communities of any American state. And we have a very significant Japanese presence, not just in the community, but also in the business side. And when you think about the companies that we are honored to host here in New Jersey, big household names, both with Japanese global headquarters and with Korean global headquarters, it's not just the community, but it is already a significant presence, much like the South Asian presence. So we didn't go to India to start from scratch. We went out there to, yes, we want to see startups. Yes, we want to meet companies we've never met before, but we also want to take companies. I'm going to use Samsung as an example. I want to pitch Samsung on adding another, you name it, 100,000 jobs into New Jersey, and sort of making that pitch. And I suspect we'll do some, as I mentioned, some cultural visitations as part of this as well. We'll also visit government officials at the highest level. We want to make sure that we're acknowledging that. We've already got that ball in motion. Brady O'Connor and Bill Noonan are here from Choose, among others. They are running this. They're the ones who actually raise the money that fund this so that taxpayers don't pay a dime for this, which is the way it should be. And these are not cheap. If you're looking to help us, we'll take it. Brady and Bill will have the tin cup out here at the end of the meeting. But it's worth it. I will tell you, if you speak to the individuals who have both supported and have been on our prior missions, they'll tell you it was worth every penny. I'm not sure what the size of the delegation to each of those countries will be, but 25 to 40 probably, in that range. So we'll bring tech. You're going to join us, I believe, personally, not just NJIT. So we'll have higher ed, we'll have business, we'll have cultural, we'll have elected officials, we'll have the support of our great diplomatic colleagues, both the Japanese and Korean missions, but also the American interest. Rahm Emanuel, who's our ambassador in Japan, we met 5 or 6 weeks ago to sort of war game our visit to Japan. It's going to be very exciting, and we will make sure it is worthwhile. This is not National Lampoon fall vacation. This is, we work our ass off and have a little bit of fun at it at the same time. Very excited, though.
Well, Governor, the business community in New Jersey really is excited about the momentum we have and the direction we're going in. And I thank you for your leadership in creating that new environment for us. But we have a long way to go. And I think the key for us is that with all that we talked about today and some of the things I brought up to you, we have an opportunity right now that we cannot not take advantage of. We have an opportunity to make some quantum leaps in our image, in our economy, in the business community, which will help attract the Asian business community from Kentucky or from wherever. So this is something that I think, based on our comments today and some of your answers, if we can attack those aggressively, we have a huge upside, and that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I would echo all of that. Just maybe leave you with a couple of thoughts here. I know we're running out of time. We're trying to get the World Cup finals in New Jersey, or when you're in India or you're in Japan or South Korea or you name it. There are some basic facts which we should never overlook. And I'd say two of them, one of which I've touched on, one of which I really haven't. One is that we are an incredibly welcoming, international, extremely diverse state. So when I mentioned, I'll pick Ellen as an example, when I mentioned we have one of the largest Korean communities of any American state, you can actually fill in the blank with almost any nationality and fill in, instead of Korean, you can drop in Dominican, Mexican, Indian, Pakistani, Chinese, Japanese. The combination of being diverse, welcoming, our values matter increasingly when you're in these meetings. Values matter. Do you respect everybody in the community? Is it a safe community in which to do business? Do you feel welcome in the community? Increasingly, all of that family of factors, in addition to the hard math of what are your incentives, what are you doing about minority supply or diverse supply? So in addition to the hard math, the values and related matters matter. The other thing that matters, by the way, which again, Brady and Bill will attest to this because they put together these pitches all the time, and that is connectivity. Newark Liberty, JFK, Teterboro, Susan, Philadelphia. Welcome, by the way. I think you might have schlepped the longest to get here today. The great mayor of Cherry Hill, New Jersey, Susan Shinogula. Belated happy birthday, by the way. But our infrastructure, the train infrastructure, my speech yesterday was about the port of New York and New Jersey, the biggest port right now in America. Higher ed is on that. The tapestry of the pitch is much more complex than even I would have guessed before walking into this 6 years ago, but a lot of that resonates. So we'll literally do, how many nonstop daily flights are there between Metro New York and Tokyo or Seoul? And there's almost no comparison. So I want to thank Tom. Let's hear it for Tom, who did and as I say, I think the list of where we've found common ground has increased meaningfully over the past 6 years, and I would say I have a high degree of optimism that'll continue to increase meaningfully, and I thank you for your friendship and leadership. Tech, I thank you and your NJIT colleagues, not just for hosting us today, but for leading this gem of an institution, not just for New Jersey, but for America. And to each and every one of you, to the elected officials, other dignitaries, business folks, deep, deep thanks for your belief in New Jersey. I'll leave it this way. We've come a long way, and we still have a very good way to travel, but I like the way the vectors are pointing, and with your help, we'll continue, even through a choppy, uncertain world out there, that we'll continue to get stronger, more diverse, more welcoming, more equitable, and growing in the years ahead. Thank you.
Governor, as always, thank you for your candor and your honesty. And as I said up front, this has been a real honor for me to be part of this with you today. And I think we are a lot closer than people think on a lot of issues. Thank you very much.